thundering across the stars to save the universe from the monster minds. Jayce searches for his father to unite the magic root and lead his lightning league. Wheeled warriors explode into battle.
Listen up, because I'm about to tell you about one of the most ambitious toy-driven cartoons of the 1980s that almost nobody remembers today. But here's the thing. This wasn't just another forgettable cash grab. This cartoon had everything going for it. A legendary sci-fi writer, top-tier Japanese animation studios, and toys that were genuinely innovative for their time. So why did it crash and burn so spectacularly that it never even got a proper ending? I'm talking about Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors, a show that premiered in 1985, and should have been as big as Transformers or G.I. Joe. Instead, it became one of the greatest what could have been stories in cartoon history. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what made this show special, why it failed despite having all the right pieces, and, this is the kicker, how there's actually a completed movie script sitting in a drawer somewhere that would have given us the ending we never got. We're going to cover the wild world of Reagan-era toy marketing, the genius behind Babylon 5 writing Saturday morning cartoons, and how Mattel managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to be as frustrated as I am that this franchise never got its due. But first, let me paint you a picture of just how insane the mid-80s toy market really was. The toyetic era. Okay, so to understand why Jayce even exists, we need to talk about 1984. And no, not the Orwell book. I'm talking about the year the FCC basically said screw it and lifted restrictions on commercial content in children's programming. This was peak Reagan-era deregulation, and it completely changed the game. Suddenly, toy companies didn't have to just advertise during cartoons. They could make the cartoons. The whole show became a 22-minute commercial. And honestly, it was kind of genius from a business perspective. Mattel had already hit it big with He-Man and Masters of the Universe. I mean, who didn't have a Castle Grayskull or at least want one? But here's the thing. Mattel looked around and saw Hasbro absolutely printing money with Transformers and Kenner doing the same with Mask. These were vehicle-based toy lines, and Mattel wanted in on that action. So they created the Wheeled Warriors toy line. And get this, they released the toys before the cartoon even existed. That's backwards from how it usually worked, but Mattel was in a hurry. They had these modular vehicles with this stack and attack system where you could swap parts between different vehicles, and they figured kids would just buy them? Yeah, that didn't work out so great. We'll get to that disaster later. But once the toys were sitting on shelves not selling, Mattel realized they needed a story. They needed characters. They needed Saturday morning magic. So they went to Deke Entertainment, the same folks who'd later give us Inspector Gadget and Captain Planet, and said, make this work. And you know what? Deke actually delivered. They brought in some heavy hitters for the animation. We're talking Sunrise, the studio behind Gundam, plus Studio Shaft. These weren't your typical Saturday morning animation sweatshops. This was the good stuff. The kind of fluid, detailed mechanical animation that made you stop eating your cereal and just stare at the screen. The music, Shuki Levy and Haim Saban composed it. If those names sound familiar, they basically scored your entire childhood. And that opening theme, pure hair metal energy with a full orchestra. That narrator voice booming Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors while lightning crackled across the screen? Come on, that was appointment television. The Straczynski factor. But here's where it gets really interesting. Mattel and Deke needed someone to actually write this thing, to turn plastic vehicles into compelling characters and stories. And somehow, and I still don't know how they pulled this off, they got J. Michael Straczynski. Now, if you don't know that name, let me educate you. This is the guy who would go on to create Babylon 5, one of the most sophisticated space operas in television history. He's written for Marvel, DC, and basically every major sci-fi franchise you can think of. The man is a legend. And in 1985, he was writing about a kid searching the galaxy for his dad while fighting evil plant monsters. But here's the beautiful thing. Straczynski didn't phone it in. He later said his goal was to hijack a dopey concept and turn it into something meaningful. And brother, did he ever. Most cartoons back then were just good guys punch bad guys. Everyone learns a lesson about sharing. Simple stuff. But Jayce? This show had layers. The main villain, Sawboss, wasn't just evil for evil's sake. He was the result of a scientific experiment gone horribly wrong. The hero's father, Audric, was trying to end universal hunger with a miracle crop when a nearby star went supernova and mutated his plants into sentient, militarized monsters. Think about that for a second. The villain is literally an invasive species. The bad guys reproduce by spreading vines across planets like Kudzu from Hell. That's some genuinely creepy sci-fi horror for a kids show. And the emotional core? Jayce is just a kid trying to find his dad. That's it. That's the whole series. He's got half of a magic root that can destroy the monster minds. His dad has the other half. And they're both wandering the galaxy trying to find each other, while Sawboss hunts them both. The show never gave them that reunion. 65 episodes, and Jayce never found his father. Can you imagine if Luke Skywalker spent 3 movies looking for Obi-Wan, and the series just ended? That's what happened here. Straczynski built this serialized quest structure that was way ahead of its time. Most cartoons reset to 0 at the end of every episode. Jayce had continuity, character development, and stakes that actually mattered. The Lightning League, that's the good guys, felt like real people. Well, real people and one magical suit of armor named Un, who was basically C-3PO if he was even more cowardly. You had Herc Stormsailor, this Han Solo knockoff mercenary who complained about getting paid in gold-colored lead bars, but stuck around anyway because he actually cared. You had Flora, a girl literally grown from a flower who could sense when the monster minds were nearby. And Gellion, this centuries-old wizard scientist who was basically if Gandalf and Q from Star Trek had a baby. This wasn't just a toy commercial, this was actual storytelling. The toys that time forgot. Alright, so let's talk about the toys themselves, because this is where everything starts to fall apart. The Wheeled Warriors toy line was actually pretty innovative. That stack and attack system I mentioned. You could take the wheels off one vehicle, the weapons off another, the chassis from a third one, and build your own custom war machine. Every vehicle used the same peg system, so theoretically, the more you bought, the more combinations you could create. On paper, that's brilliant. It encourages multiple purchases and gives kids creative freedom. Mattel was thinking like Lego before Lego really dominated that space. But here's the problem, and this is a massive problem. The toys came with generic faceless drivers. The Lightning League vehicles had these bland human figures that looked like they were designed by someone who'd never seen a human before. And the monster minds? They came with little green brain figures. Just brains in vehicles. No Jayce figure. No Herc. No Flora. None of the characters you were watching on TV every week existed in toy form. Can you imagine being a kid, watching Jayce have these incredible adventures, and then going to the toy store and finding generic pilot number 3? It's like if Star Wars toys came with random rebel soldier instead of Luke Skywalker. And here's the other thing. In the cartoon, the stack and attack maneuver was this cool computerized mid-battle weapon swap. The vehicles had AI. They responded to Jayce's commands with command acknowledged in these robot voices. It was slick. In real life, you had to manually take apart your toys with your hands. There was no quick swap action feature. You literally disassembled the vehicle, which kind of kills the fantasy when you're trying to recreate the battle you just watched. Mattel also made this weird choice to release the toys before the show built any audience. So when the toys hit shelves, nobody knew what they were or why they should care. By the time the cartoon premiered and kids actually wanted Jayce toys, the retailers had already marked them down as failures. It's like showing up to a party 3 hours late and wondering why nobody's excited to see you. The marketing disaster. This is where we get into the real tragedy of Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors, because this wasn't a failure of quality. The show was good, the toys were innovative, but the marketing? Absolute catastrophe. See, most successful toy lines of the era, Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, they developed the toys and the media together. There was synergy. The cartoon characters matched the toys matched the cartoon, and kids could seamlessly move between watching and playing. Jayce did it backwards. Toys first, story later. And that created this fundamental disconnect. When kids watched the show, they saw Jayce piloting the armed force, this cool vehicle with a grappling arm. They saw Herc flying the Pride of the Skies 2, this massive space barge. They saw Flora using her psychic powers. And then they went to the store, and what did they find? Vehicles with no personality and drivers with no faces. The cartoon depicted these vehicles as having personalities, almost like the Transformers. But the toys were just hunks of plastic that you had to manually reconfigure. There was no transformation, no quick change gimmick, nothing that captured the magic of what you saw on screen. And here's the kicker. Mattel knew this was a problem. They actually developed a second wave of toys that would have fixed everything. Character figure packs with actual Jayce, Herc, and Flora figures. New vehicles that were more screen accurate. Even toys of the Zoggies, these little robot dogs from the show. Prototypes were made, molds were created, and then nothing. The second wave was canceled before it ever reached stores, because the first wave had bombed so hard that Mattel just cut their losses and moved on. So we got one wave of toys that nobody wanted because they didn't match the show, and by the time the show built an audience that would have wanted better toys, Mattel had already given up. It's like watching someone fumble the ball on the 1-yard line and then just walk off the field. The unfinished story. Now we get to the part that still makes me angry 30 plus years later. Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors ran for 65 episodes. That was the standard syndication package back then. Enough episodes to run Monday through Friday for 13 weeks, which meant stations could loop it multiple times a year. Most shows were designed to hit that number and call it done. But Jayce wasn't designed that way. Remember, Straczynski built this as a serialized quest. Jayce was still searching for his father. The monster minds were still spreading across the galaxy. The story wasn't finished. It was just getting started. And here's the thing that'll really twist the knife. There was a plan to finish it. Straczynski was commissioned to write a feature-length movie that would wrap up the entire series. This would have been like the Transformers, the movie, or the G.I. Joe movie, a theatrical release that gave the story a proper conclusion. The script was written. It exists. Straczynski has confirmed he still has it. And we know some of what was in it. Jayce would have finally met his father. There would have been an original Lightning League of veteran warriors who'd fought the Monster Mind's predecessors. Audric would have been killed by Sawboss in the final battle, a genuinely dark turn for a kid's property. And Jayce would have finally united the two halves of the magic root and used it to neutralize the monster minds across the entire universe, ending the threat forever. That's the ending we should have gotten. That's the payoff for 65 episodes of build-up. But because the toys failed, the movie was shelved before animation even began. The script just sits there, unproduced, a ghost of what could have been. Can you imagine if Star Wars ended after The Empire Strikes Back? If we never got Return of the Jedi? That's what happened to Jayce. The story just stops. No resolution, no closure. Just Jayce, still searching. Forever. So what's the legacy of Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors? Well, for most people, there isn't one. The show's been largely forgotten. It's not on streaming services. The toys are collector's items now, but not particularly valuable ones. Most people under 40 have never even heard of it. But for those of us who watched it, man, it sticks with you. This was a show that proved you could tell sophisticated stories in the Saturday morning cartoon space. It had ambition. It had heart. It respected its audience enough to give them serialized storytelling and genuine emotional stakes. And it failed not because it was bad, but because the business side couldn't get its act together. Shout Factory and Mill Creek Entertainment have released the series on DVD, and there's this whole cult following that's kept the memory alive. People still talk about it on forums, still share clips on YouTube, still wonder what that movie would have been like. There's even been talk over the years about reboots or revivals, but nothing's ever materialized. The rights are probably tangled up in some corporate filing cabinet, and honestly, I'm not sure a modern reboot would capture what made the original special. Because here's the thing, Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors is a perfect time capsule of a very specific moment in entertainment history. It's from that brief window when toy companies had unlimited power to create media, when Japanese animation studios were lending their talents to American Saturday morning cartoons, and when writers like Straczynski could sneak genuine science fiction into shows designed to sell plastic. That moment didn't last long. The market got oversaturated. Parents started complaining about the commercialization of children's programming, and the whole Toy-Toon boom collapsed by the end of the decade. But for a brief, shining moment, we got shows like Jayce, flawed, ambitious, and ultimately doomed, but genuinely trying to be something more than just a commercial. So that's the rise and fall of Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors, a show that had everything going for it. Talented writers, gorgeous animation, innovative toys, and a story that actually meant something, but couldn't overcome the fundamental disconnect between what it was and how it was marketed. It's a cautionary tale about putting the cart before the horse, or in this case, putting the toys before the story. It's proof that you can have all the right ingredients and still end up with a failure if you don't know how to put them together. And it's a reminder that somewhere out there, there's a script that would have given us closure. A script that would have let Jayce finally find his father, defeat Sawboss, and save the universe. We'll probably never see it, but man, wouldn't it be something if we did? If you grew up watching Jayce and the Wheeled Warriors, drop a comment and let me know your favorite episode or character. And if you've never heard of it before this video, well, now you know about one of the great lost cartoons of the 80s. But here's the thing, if you want to understand why some franchises succeed and others fail, you need to check out my video on the complete history of Transformers and how Hasbro got everything right that Mattel got wrong with Jayce. I break down the entire strategy that made Transformers a billion-dollar franchise while Jayce faded into obscurity. Click that video right now, and I'll see you there.